When people ask me how I came to the left, I always start with the same truth that I never stopped being a libertarian. Liberty has always been my anchor, my first principle. Even at 13, when I was getting swept up in militia forums and Tea Party rhetoric, it wasn't hatred or nationalism that pulled me in. It was the word freedom. The promise that no man should be owned, no life should be dictated by some distant authority. That instinct was real. It was mine. And it never left me. What changed wasn't the value. What changed was my understanding of what it takes to make liberty real. Because the fundamental problem is that liberty without structure collapses into chaos. And chaos invites hierarchy back in through the back door. You can scream about freedom all you want, but if you still live paycheck to paycheck, if your landlord can throw you out, if your time is chained to a clock, you aren't free. You're just a slave in nicer clothes. The rhetoric of liberty has been cheapened into an empty slogan because we've let it be defined as the absence of government, when in reality, liberty requires something far deeper. It requires infrastructure that makes freedom the default condition of life. That's what the Enlightenment taught us. Liberty wasn't just a cry against kings. It was a recognition that human beings are rational, dignified, and capable of self-determination, but only if the material conditions of their lives support it. Thomas Paine understood this when he called for basic income. The French revolutionaries understood it when they linked liberty with fraternity and equality. Liberty was never meant to be isolated. It was meant to be social, because your freedom is meaningless if mine is stripped away. And that's why liberty led me left, because the more I thought about it, the more I realized that markets don't care about liberty. Hierarchies don't care about liberty. Corporations don't care about liberty. They care about control, extraction, and profit. And if you leave them unchecked, they will crush liberty under the weight of necessity. You can't exercise free will when your rent is half your income. You can't choose your future when healthcare bankrupts you. You can't become when every ounce of your time is consumed by survival. For me, the turning point was understanding that freedom isn't just the absence of rulers. Freedom is the presence of sovereignty. Sovereignty over your home. Sovereignty over your time. Sovereignty over your body. Sovereignty over your life. And when you start asking what it takes to guarantee that sovereignty, the answers lead you left every single time. Housing must be guaranteed, because without a door that locks from the inside, you are exposed and dependent. Time must be liberated, because without hours to think and breathe, you are caged, even if the cage is invisible. Healthcare must be universal, because no one is free when their body is hostage to a system. Education must be accessible, because without knowledge, liberty shrinks into ignorance and manipulation. Anarchists sometimes talk like structure itself is the enemy, but I've always seen it differently. The real question isn't whether we have structures. The real question is whether those structures output liberty or control. My philosophy has always been that systems should be designed so that their natural function, their possewood, what they do in practice, is to expand freedom. That's what I mean by liberation infrastructure. Housing designed to end precarity, work week reductions designed to reclaim time, technology deployed to decentralize power instead of hoard it. In other words, liberty not as a slogan, but as a structural outcome. And that's where Enlightenment socialism comes in, because socialism at its core is nothing more than the people owning the means of production. And what does that mean in practical terms? It means you own your life. You own your own labor. You own your own means to flourish. That doesn't require a dictator or a vanguard or some gray bureaucracy issuing decrees. It requires building systems where the material foundations of liberty are secured for everyone, not just the rich. In that sense, socialism is not the opposite of liberty. It is liberty matured. The right talks about freedom, but what they sell is license for oligarchs. The tankies talk about equality, but what they sell is obedience to the state. Enlightenment socialism cuts through both lies. It says liberty is the point, dignity is the goal, and equality is the condition that makes it possible. Not the Cold War caricature of socialism, not the neoliberal counterfeit of liberty, but the real thing. The thing I've been chasing since I was 12 years old, poring over Thomas Paine, asking what makes revolutions possible. So when people ask me how I came to the left, I tell them I didn't. Liberty brought me here. Liberty demanded I come here. Because once you see that freedom without security is an illusion, once you understand that sovereignty without material foundations is just a slogan, there's no going back. Liberty is not safe in the hands of oligarchs. Liberty is not safe in the hands of authoritarians. Liberty is only safe in the hands of the people themselves, secured, decentralized, and made permanent through the infrastructure of life itself. That's why I'm here. Not to abandon liberty, but to finish what the Enlightenment started. To build a civilization where liberty is not rationed, not conditional, not for sale, but the air we breathe.